seeing the energy of it amongst myself and outside of me with other people. You know, the root chakra governs your survival, right? Instincts, for the most part. You know, sexuality, war, you know, basic human emotions, and shit like that. And that is the foundation of your upward mobility of energy within the human body. So the root chakra also needs to be balanced, because when we look at, this is what trips me out about Western people, and how we try to oversimplify something that's already simple once we demystify the black and white viewpoint of the different energies. Or you know what I'm saying? To break it down a little bit simpler before I confuse anybody. Kind of like with, if I say something burned me, right? No. That's hot and cold. I'm thinking of polarity right now. But something like, we like to think of good and bad, right? These energies that seem like polar opposites, but only depend upon the perspective of the individual. So when we're looking at, to me, somebody eating an apple is good. To somebody else, me eating an apple could be bad depending on the situation, right? So that whole, we look at the chakra system, we always say lower system, and we have a higher system. Now, what trips me out about how we view it is that we always looking for whether something is good and bad. We was taught that in school, compare and contrast, right? Contrasting things and comparing and contrasting things don't really do it any type of justice when you're trying to look at things objectively and in order, right? So when something is meant to be in order, it flows correctly, right? The energy flows in a direction that it needs to be flowing towards. So with the root chakra, the energy in the root chakra needs to be a solid foundation, right? Same thing for the sacral, same thing for the solar plexus, the heart, right? Throat, pineal, and crown. Right? Everybody knows about these systems, but we don't really understand our foundational awareness of things. We go based on, a lot of people do regurgitated rote learning and shit like that, and it stifles the ability to actually consume the information and absorb it properly. And we always quick to do this is another aspect of the root chakra. We grab for the information first without understanding it and internalizing it to get it to where it needs to be and grounding that information, right? Same thing for the other chakra systems. People think opening up your third eye is a good idea right off the bat. If you're not balanced, you're not going to be able to have a beautiful experience 100% all the time. If you don't have self-awareness, then you're not going to be able to experience the reality that you need. And self-awareness doesn't mean that you're just, you have information or you're conscious. That's fuck. Try not to get mad. But, the fact that we are beelining for information is a sign of, I'm not going to say it's bad, because it's not even negative. It's not even a negative thing. It's just when you're undergoing a process to unlearn things that you knew. If somebody's been Santa Claus, now when somebody breaks your reality of what Santa Claus is, right? You gyrating with the death of their identity. You see what I'm saying? The belief that Santa Claus was supposed to be this white guy with a beard surfing the clouds with reindeers and one at the front with a red nose. Whole time, this shit folktale, right? Bullshit. So when you going about unlearning the process as a child, depending on how attached you were to that identity or to that thought process, right? Whether you was doing it willingly or unwillingly, you become you have to undergo a filtering out process. Now you have to reconceptualize what Christmas really is. Somebody's bringing you presents under a Christmas tree, right? So, and I'm talking slow for a reason. So everybody who probably think, oh, you're talking too slow, we have to learn to embed the information. So back to the root chakra system. When we go in for new information, you cannot fuck around and do it from a frequency of scarcity or I need to do this. No matter how fucking whatever you think you are, you're not going to be able to embed that information. You're not going to embed the information in the way that you want it to, because how the fuck how the fuck do, if you're not in an environment that supports the frequency in which a lot of us aren't, if you're not in an environment that supports the frequency in which you're trying to manifest, I guess you could say, or allow that energy to permeate your being properly without, we live in a life where it's like, this is another thing of the root chakra. You have other people's wills that can be, up against yours. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's a physical or, mental or emotional even. You have people who employ their own system of will towards you. It ain't always got to be negative. But that information is something that you have to take into account. So now that you're trying to readjust to a grounded reality, I guess you could say, you're not going to be able to do it if you don't undergo the filter. The filtering out of the information. The filtering out of the lines. Right? Because you see it a lot of times on the street and shit like that. Coming from an imbalanced state, they always say this is what's crazy. And I don't even want to encourage nobody to go down this type of thought process, but when something is out of line with its frequency at the base level, right? I'm gonna give an example, right? Let's take people who do cocaine, right? Crack. If you go on the street and you see a nigga doing crack, you can tell he on crack, right? But if you see some white dude that's a billionaire or, a politician or something do crack, you can't really tell that they do crack. One is doing it out of survival. The other one is doing it and they feel a lot more safer. And it's the imbalance, It don't mean that they root chakra ain't balanced. It's just, it's just one that's energized more. Likewise, it causes instability in the other systems, but I'm hoping that y'all getting the concept. When you bring about, how should I say? When you are fundamentally grounded, right? The information not only processes more, but you are beginning to realize that, a lot of the information that you probably learned isn't even applicable. We say that shit when we leave school. We don't know what the fuck we do with the information in school half the time. Because your environment doesn't support the dissecting of cells or the viewing of cells. Your environment didn't support geography. Why are you in a geography class? Well, at the time you probably were thinking like, you live in you don't even know where you at. Now you gotta learn where you at. Oh, this is pretty cool. You're going about the thought process and all that type of shit. And then when you leave, it's like, shit, look where I'm at. Fuck, I need to learn about longitude, latitude, 32 degrees, 42 latitude, 42 longitude. It's like, you don't know where to apply it. or you can't. Even if you want to, you have to literally bring that will into for yourself. You cannot be 9 times out of 10 your environment doesn't support your mentality, especially if you look like me. Because goddamn, we don't really. Intelligence is I'm not gonna. It's seen as taboo amongst a lot of us. Natural intelligence. So, take that with a grain of salt. Now, I'm gonna leave it. I don't want to make this too drawn out because that's not what the fuck I want to do. I tend to overtalk myself, but I don't want to leave anybody astray when it comes down to dissecting information. And if you enjoy this video and you agree with the information and you want more content like this, just what I'm saying, let me know in the comment section below, because this is going to be just on YouTube. This is not going to be for any other platform at this time. But with the imbalance in the frequency of the system, right? A foundation must be laid. This is why they take the foundation away from anybody. Right? You ain't got no leg to stand on. How the fuck you gonna walk? Right? They go for anything in the body or anything in the world. Even if you ain't got no